So I founded the Community School for Social Justice 15 years ago, and we are in the South Bronx. And it was with a vision of creating a supportive and caring community that builds relationships between and among the members of our school community, and that focuses on the social, emotional, and academic development of our students. Not surprisingly, our vision, realizing that, has always been a work in progress. And I'd like to share a little bit of that story with you. Uh-oh, wrong way. So, this is Charlotte. Charlotte is a CSSJ student. She's grown up and lives in a very dangerous neighborhood in the Bronx. She lives with her parents who came from Jamaica and her siblings. This is her report card from her first semester with us, and as we can see, at the end of her first semester, she had an average of 69. This is Charlotte's disciplinary record, starting with, and this is just a record of suspensions. If we had her discipline record, it would really be big. But this is suspension starting with 4th grade, when she was suspended for a pattern of cursing out folks. And it escalated by the time she was in middle school to physical violence, including a fight between 7th and 8th grade in the summer where she was stabbed. When Charlotte came to us in her first 2 years of our school, she had 6 fights. This is the demographics of our school. Currently, very, very similar to the demographics all along. Prior to our 2013 school year, we had seen a shifting of student demographics in several key areas. But by 2013, which was the year that Charlotte entered our school, 1 in 9 entering students, 9th graders, was reading below 3rd grade level. 24% of them scored more than 4 grade levels below in reading. Our poverty rate went up to 95%. In addition, 98% of our students scored below state standards in their ELA and math exams in 8th grade. And additionally, the number of child abuse cases reported by our school rose steeply, as did the homelessness of our students. Not surprisingly, we also saw our suspension data steeply increase. There was a frightening amount of suspensions during our 2014-15 school year. There were 95 principal, 18 superintendent, and 113 in total. In addition, we had started to see a trend of parents coming to the school to initiate fights in the school neighborhood if they felt their child had been wronged. Coupled with all of this, in 2013, 50% of our incoming class had already been identified as chronically absent from school in their middle school years. If you look at this slide, that comes from the South Bronx Rising Together Zone, you see that 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. By the time student is in high school, they're missing almost 1 out of every 2 days of school. In addition, in the Bronx is the only one of the 5 boroughs in New York City where every single school district has been identified with students having a large number of students who are chronically absent, beginning in elementary. And here we have a slide that shows the most common levels of education attained by the adults 25 years and older in the communities. And if you look, we're up there in that red circle, and we can see that in our community, the parents of our kids, the relatives of our kids, have less than a high school diploma. And that's part of the struggle. So the biggest challenges: the clash of values between our school community and our values, and those of the homes, the neighborhoods, and sometimes the prior schools. that our students come from. As well, the lack of moral practice. Often the kids want to do the right thing, but they can't always get from believing that or desiring that to action. It's a hard leap to make. Sounds really easy, and it's not. Because how do you get students to de-escalate or to buy into resolving things peacefully when they're fighting to survive in their neighborhood? That's the norm. And their families are often telling them that that's the right thing to do. One strong factor on our side during this time was that the students and their families and the staff really felt connected to and supported by our school community. They felt safe there. They wanted to be part of the community. And this was supported by data from these three sources. We have the Learning Environment Survey, the Quality Review, which is again done by outside folks, and by, we work with Deloitte to do a career and college mentoring program, and by a survey that they did as we were rebranding. And so this bonding to the school, this commitment to the school became a great resource for us for leveraging change. And it became apparent that some things needed to change. The makeup of the kids coming to us, they displayed much more at-risk behaviors, much more aggressive and violent behaviors. And we needed to do something to change, to better deal with what students were bringing into our school community. So our intervention was driven by the need to leverage resources, to build capacity of the staff, and to increase students' voice and their accountability, both important. And we began our work in the 2015-16 school year on our restorative justice model after I received a grant, and we partnered with the CBO to begin work, and they provide some coaching and all sorts of other supports that did help make this possible. So this is our three-tier restorative justice model. The first tier, everyone in the community is impacted. Primary pieces, and it's about community and social emotional skill building. We start with the values. We went back to the values. We didn't assume anymore that everybody bought into them or understood them. So I think there's more buy-in. It wasn't as much, what does that mean? What does that look like in practice? How do we do that every day? And so last year we went back to that, and we worked as a community to decide what are the most important values for us that we will live every day in this school community. And we used family group, advisory group as a vehicle for this work. Each member of a family group participated in defining these values. And at the end of many, many, many weeks, we ended up with 4 community values that we live by. 1, and they're not on there right now, respect. 2, supportive community. 3, everyone has a voice. And 4, social justice. And let me tell you a little bit about family group, because that's where so much of this change happened. Family group is when a student enters CSSJ, they become part of a family group. There's about 14, 15 other students and a family group advisor who is a teacher. They stay with them all 4 years, deliberately. This person, this adult, very deliberately in their life becomes someone they can count on, someone that knows them well and shepherds them through these years. The group meets 4 times a week, and it really does focus on social, emotional, academic support, building, bonding to the school, to the community, to our norms. And it really was the primary place for doing all of our restorative justice work. Okay, staff. Our goal in this tier was to increase staff capacity and increase ownership so that they could lead family group activities and learn how to respond restoratively to conflicts. Am I on that? Yes, I'm still on the right thing. 100% of our staff was trained in how to do circle kind of activities in family group during this time. Some staff members became trainers themselves, our social workers notably, and they went into family groups and they helped other people who might be struggling or just new teachers. Additionally, more than 50% of our staff participated voluntarily in after-school or weekend trainings. Increasing, what we found was, if you increase capacity, right, you can increase confidence, and you increase ownership of this, and then we're all working together. I think one of the most powerful things about this tier was increasing student voice. Students saw, and students had voice in the past, but not as much. And here students saw that their voices were not only heard, their thoughts and their concerns were valued as we strengthened this school culture. And it allowed for more ownership on their part of the restorative justice model and our community values. It also, again, developed opportunities for our students to become leaders. This year, 48 kids out of 320 were respect reps. So as we further defined, what does that big term respect mean? They did a lot of the moving and shaking work in this area. Let me go to the next slide. Okay, so Tier 2. Tier 2, our purpose here is to help folks when one of the values of the school has been broken, and to help do this, restore peace and restore it quickly, because quickly is very important. Developing structures and supports and systems is crucial at this place for us. And that's where we did a lot of work, both last year and this year. Two practices that we now implement are restorative chats. They're for very minor kind of things where actually you're preventing conflicts. And they're usually led by a family group advisor. The other one is peer mediation, and peer mediations are led by 2 students from the peer mediation class, by the social worker who teaches that class, and sometimes it's just led by the 2 students without the adults, if we feel that they have the capacity to do that. A crucial element to this is the follow-up. After we resolve the problem, there is a follow-up. So one of the students involved, as mediator, makes sure that she goes to the person or he goes to the person and, is the peace holding? Is this resolved? Do we need to come back? Do we need to do more work? Just to let you know, to go back to our Charlotte. Oh, wait, I want to show you the forms, though. They're pretty good. There you go. There's the mediation request form. Anybody can request a mediation, and it can be student to student, student to staff, staff to student. And then here is the form that's filled out afterwards by one of the students. I want to talk about Charlotte again, my little Charlotte from 9th grade. In 11th grade, Charlotte became a peer mediator after having 2 rough years with fighting. She also became an attendance success peer mentor. She had 0 fights because she really wanted to live up to expectations. And she she really does display strong moral attachment to the values and to the members of the community. These forms, by the way, are in your binders, I believe. Okay. Now we come to Tier 3. The majority of our students are not involved in Tier 3. This is for a student who has been suspended, and before they can return to the community, we have to go through a reintegration process. And it's called the Reintegration Circle, and we have a form, and it's also in the binder. The process involves the student, 2 other students that have been selected by the student to help him or her successfully reintegrate, social worker, family group advisor, and hopefully the parent or guardian of the student. Every student in our school who has had a suspension this year has had to go through a reintegration circle in order to come back. And during this time, it gives the student an opportunity to talk about their feelings. So, when I get angry, this is how I feel. This is what I do. What else could you do that would be a better solution to your anger feelings? Who are the adults who can help you? And what are the consequences if you don't handle this successfully, because it's important to marry those two together. Impact. This is just a favorite of mine. We had to include it. Every family group, there were 24 of them, made a poster, and they were displayed all over. And these are our 4 core values. This is a pamphlet that was put together. We had a 100% respect 100% of the time for 100% of the people campaign this year as we looked at what is respect. What does respect mean? So let's define it. And then what does that mean as we interact with everybody each day? And this goes into a little more detail. So what does it look like from a staff member to a student? From students to one another? From students to staff? Finally, suspension data. You saw where we started. Last year, dramatic decrease. First half of this year, also decrease. It's a little hot at the beginning of the year. Our 9th graders have given us a run for the money, but we're winning the war there. When you do a reintegration circle, you do a contract for success. And this happens to be Charlotte's, because at the beginning of 12th grade, some of our incoming 9th graders decided it would be a good way to come into a school and attack 12th graders. It's a way to make a reputation. That's what they did in other schools. That's what you do. So unfortunately, Charlotte was spit on one day at the train station and then another day attacked. And Charlotte did not come to school the next day, but she called us to tell us why, because she was too hot. She avoided it in school. She went to the student and said, "Are we okay?" Student said yes, and then jumped her at the train station that afternoon. So Charlotte, driven by her aunt and another adult, maybe her mom, went to the girls' neighborhood that evening and fought. So she was suspended. And she came to us and she told us about it. And this is her contract for success. And so she talked about her anger. She talked about when she feels that way, things she can do, adults she can go to, action she can take, and if she doesn't work on this behavior, what some of the consequences would be. Recently, we were talking about effects of fighting on Charlotte. And she said to me that she didn't want to fight at the school because it would become a larger fight. And friends would get involved and people would get hurt who had no part of it. But she also talked about the fact that, let me tell you this first. She also talked about restorative justice and the impact it's had on her. And she said restorative justice lowered the rate of fights because of the mediations that Katie, our social worker who leads the class, put together before a fight happened. As well, 86, just to talk about evidence of impact, 86 to 90% of our kids get accepted to colleges annually. And I just had, as I was coming here, I just had a text from one of my kids who's at University of Albany, and he wanted to let me know he had 100 on a chemistry test, and just checking in, which the kids do a lot. So we've really seen that we're getting kids into school, into colleges, and it makes a huge difference. And since September, we've had 20 peer mediations. 19 of the 20 have remained successfully resolved. The other one is a story for another day. And I'd like to conclude by talking about Charlotte. And Charlotte knew I was coming here. I had asked her some questions. I was honest with her. And she said, "Are you going to be talking about me?" I said, "I probably will be." And she took her transcript out of her backpack. She said, "I want you to show them this." And she had her highlighter and she's highlighting it for me. She even wrote notes for me, by the way. When I was busy with something else, she was writing things I should tell people about restorative justice, and that's why I had that quote. So Charlotte showed me semesters when she fought, her average went down. Semesters, we can see it, first semester of 9th grade, She had 3 fights. Second semester of 10th grade, 3 more fights. 11th grade, see that nice upward climb? Not a fight. As a matter of fact, in 11th grade, not only did she have 0 fights, but her average for both semesters was in the high 80, which is a huge increase from starting at 69. And my Charlotte will graduate in June and has been accepted to 4 colleges. So that's our story. Thank you for letting me tell our story. It's a work in progress, but we're feeling good. Thank you.